Welcome back to No Guarantees. This is my 1980 Corvette engine, and as you can see up here, it looks a little naked. We're going to see if we can fix that today. Let's get started. This is the factory power steering for the Jeep Wrangler, and this isn't going to work on there. It worked fine, but the mounts don't line up. So I'm going to see if we can get these off, and we can work on mounting the new one somewhere over here, I think. Let's get going. I messed around with them for a little while, but eventually I decided that I'm never going to use them, and they're already rusted out, so I'm not going to be able to sell them to anybody, so I might as well just cut them. And after cutting the lines, it made it really easy to just unscrew the fittings, and I was done. Now, moving on to actually starting the front of the engine, it was time to start with the water pump. Originally I was planning on using the short water pump that I had, but the kit that I bought for the pulleys required a long water pump, so I had to go buy one, and I figured it wasn't a bad deal to go buy a new water pump anyway. First I gave it a quick eyeball test just to make sure it looked like the right one, and then I had to deal with the problem of studs. It did not come with any studs. So what I did was I pulled the studs out of my old water pump, measured them with a pair of calipers, and then I was able to go to AutoZone and buy the right set. I could not find any conclusive measurements anywhere, so I figured it'd just be better to do it myself. Now, the water pump did come with these gaskets, but back when I was planning on just replacing the one I already had, I brought these Velcro ones, so I think I'm going to use these. I also couldn't find any bolts anywhere for the water pump that wouldn't cost me under 20 bucks, so I went to Tractor Supply and got some of these bolts, so I'm going to see if these work too. The first thing I'm going to do is apply some RTV. I'm only going to use it on the block side of the gasket because it's a new water pump, and I think the only porous material in the gasket surface, if any, is going to be on the engine side. I'm going to be using Permatex 2 because it's what I have. I also think it will help hold the gaskets on the block a little bit better, which should make lining up the water pump a lot easier. I honestly messed around with this water pump for a while. I could not get one of the holes to line up for the life of me, but eventually I got it. I just needed to be a little more patient, and I could get all the bolts all the way down. It was pretty cool to see some shiny parts on the front of this motor. It was getting me excited to see it with all the rest of the accessories on there. Now that that's done, and I think it looks pretty good, we can get to work on the actual accessories. I bought a kit from Summit. I'll show it here. It was pretty cheap. I felt like it was the easiest way to do it, and let's get started. I decided the first thing I was going to try was going to be the power steering pump, and immediately I noticed I had a problem. With the mount attached in the low position, the spot on the back where the hose connects was running into my cradle. So I figured I'd try the high position. A quick little update, so the whole high position, low position thing I was talking about, I was right. I do need to have it in the high position, but in order to do that I have to take the bracket off, and let me show you why that's temporarily a problem. So this is the power steering pump, and as you can see, this one had the bracket on it from the old owner, but the problem is that the bracket bolt is covered by the pulley. So in order to take it off, I've got to pull the pulley out. So I'm going to run to Advanced Auto real quick and see if I can rent a tool to get this off. I've never done it before, but it shouldn't be that hard. Well, I went out and I picked up this guy, and I think it'll work. Let's see what happens. The puller wasn't bad at all. It didn't have any instructions, but it wasn't that hard to figure out. I've heard that installing them is a lot harder than taking them off, so we'll see if that holds true. And now I'm going to get into installing the brackets in their new configuration, and hopefully they'll actually fit on the engine this time. Alright, just a quick update. I've got the bottom of the mount in, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on up here between that, and this, and this, and this. And I think they do it this way to give you a lot of options, but I really wish there was only one option, because then I'd be done by now. So I'm thinking I'm going to come off this one and go to here. I found this old bolt that just happens to fit. I don't really know what it's for, but it does fit in there. So I'm hoping I can just cobble something together with all the random parts I have, but But we'll see. I'll clue you guys back in when I figure something out. Alright, so I've got it set up now. I've got it on here. It's not tightened down or anything. But I'm thinking, just looking at this, the bolt follows this channel pretty well. So I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I think I'm going to stick with it. Just because I know I can use the tensioner still, and it's in roughly the right spot, and it doesn't run into my bracket or anything, so I think this is going to be a good place for it. So we'll see. I'll be back when I get this stud in, and then I'll be pressing the pulley on, and I'll probably bring you guys back for that. So be back in a bit. So it turns out the way I was doing it was right. You come off the bottom of the water pump and just come across and put it in here, and you only need a little bit of adjustability. I didn't know that. I thought it had to adjust over the whole thing, but I think it's good there. I'm gonna leave it. I can always get belts at whatever size I need, so I think this is good. I think I'm gonna move on to the crank pulley because that sounds easy. See you guys in a bit. Alright, I'm back for another update. I did tighten down the crank pulley bolts. I just realized that my arm was in the way the entire time I tried to video it. You guys wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. I put on the water pump pulley, which wasn't that difficult. The only problem I had was in here to fit over this thing. I did have to sand some paint off of this, but that's not a big deal. And you guys will notice that this pulley, however, is not shiny. Let me show you why. So basically, in here, in the power steering pump, it's a friction fit between your pulley and the spindle that it rides on. And the pulley that was included in this kit was way too narrow. So this was actually my fault. I didn't know there were two types of power steering pumps for the small block Chevy. There's one which is 74 and prior that has a keyed spindle, and there's one post 74 that has a straight press fit spindle. The pulley offered in the kit belonged on the keyed spindle, and I guess whatever power steering pump I have is the press fit one. Alright, the alternator's on. It fits in pretty well with everything else. Again, there was not enough bolts in the kit, so I had to substitute one of my own in here. Also, part of the kit, you have to take out one of your intake bolts back here and put in one of their longer ones with a spacer in it. That's not a big deal. I discovered up here for this adjuster, if I shoved a screwdriver in it and bent it up and down and made a little more room in there for the bolt and everything slides a lot better, I might end up doing that down here. I might just pull the pulley back off, shove a screwdriver in the adjuster, bend it up and down, and pull that off. And then maybe it'll slide a little more, because right now, the alternator can adjust from about here to about there, which I think is pretty good. But the power steering down here, I mean, I've only got that much. And that's like nothing. So, we'll see. I think I'm going to run to the store and get some belts, and then we'll be good to go. Well, it's dark outside now, but I got belts. I went to AutoZone and I told them I had a 1974 Chevy C10. I've got the alternator bracket. It's in a pretty good place. The power steering one is almost all the way at the end, but it's on. It looks great. I'm really happy with it. Kind of makes me laugh, the look of the half new, half old, random bolts, different colors. I like it. I think it speaks a lot to this Jeep and everything it's been through. I did notice that this bolt for adjusting the alternator, I don't know if it's stripped or if it's not long enough. There's supposed to be a nut on the other side because it just keeps turning and turning and turning. So I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm thinking even if it is stripped, I'm just gonna run a slightly longer bolt and just put a nut in here on the back, and I think that'll be fine. I don't see why that would be a problem. And with that, I'm done. I ran this bolt through. I'm gonna washer on the front and a nylon lock nut on the back. It seems to be holding everything tightly. I won't really know until I crank the motor over some, but I mean, belts are tight, pulleys are adjusted right, all the belts are straight, so I'm happy with it. I can't complain. Thank you all so much for watching. I think in the next episode, that transmission's going to make an appearance, and I'm going to see if I can get that in. And I'll see you all next time on No Guarantees.